All right, let's talk about CJ Stroud, who, I mean, is just continuously being so impressive here for the Houston Texans. Week after week, like even me, I was about as high as anyone was on CJ Stroud coming out of college. I'm blown away by how well he's playing to start. I thought it would take him a little bit of time. It's so far not. Let's talk about what he's doing. I mean, he's making some incredible plays out there. But let's start off with a negative. Why don't we? Let's start off with the interception, his only interception he's thrown in an NFL uniform. You knew it would happen eventually, right? There's obviously a bit of an element of luck to not throwing an interception through 5 games, although he has done a good job at protecting the football as well. This is a classic kind of... He still is a rookie, right? I feel like he looks really good, and then maybe like 2 or 3 passes a game, you'll be like, oh yeah, he is still a young player. Where this is zone coverage, you have a receiver trying to get, sort of behind the Saints players covering over the middle of the field. It's a route that can work on this play for sure. We'll watch how when this play begins, you're going to see that right here. Again, you can kind of see what Stroud is thinking of like, oh, you're past the linebacker, so therefore, linebacker doesn't know it's going over the middle. At the same time, though, it's like NFL players are really good, and they're really good at clogging up these gaps. In college, they're not quite as good at this stuff, but in the NFL, this is one of those plays where it's maybe college open. Even that would be a little bit of a stretch. Definitely not NFL open, though. Watch as Stroud throws it directly to the linebacker, who then, I can't show the whole play because it would get copyright claim, but you can see at the end, ball comes out, the Texans ended up recovering, so just perfectly CJ Stroud, right, of how finally throws an interception, and yet the Texans still end up with the football at the end of it, and they scored a touchdown on that drive. So even when he's throwing interceptions on drives, he's still getting touchdowns on the same drive. I know technically not the same drive, but you know what I mean. But now let's talk about some positives. I mean, there's just some dimes he's throwing out there. And like not just like over the middle type throws, really difficult throws to pull off that he is pulling off with ease. Something like this, it's going to be a one-on-one matchup on the outside. And these are big plays in football games. I think a lot of times you look at like the difference between the good offenses and the great ones is the great offenses can hit on these types of plays consistently. Obviously, a chunk of, this is going to be on the receiver. It's Nico Collins here. He's the outside threat who's really emerging as a real player for Houston. I mean, he's been actively good this season. He's, already over 500 yards just 6 weeks into the season. Like, he's having a great year. But watch how when Stroud takes a snap, also worth mentioning this is a 3rd and 4, so important. But Stroud gets rid of the football very quickly. Nico Collins is open, but he's not wide open or anything. I mean, there's a window, but it's going to be a tough throw. It is. But Stroud makes it look easy. Look at that. Right on the money. And these are the kind of things he was doing consistently in this game against the Saints. I mean, I really think, well, he's been impressive this season. This was, to me, pretty clearly his most impressive game with just these types of throws that he was consistently making. Like this one's another one where it's again going to be man coverage. It's again going to be Nico Collins. He's running a route over the middle. You see how this can work, right? Yes, there are Saints players covering over the middle, but once you get past that over the middle section, there could be a window to make this throw. As you see, Stroud's going to run a play action that gives the offensive line some time to block. Stroud has a clean pocket, throws down the field, and again, there's a window. It's not like there's like no separation, but it's not easy. Like, you're going to have to make a difficult throw, and you are pushing the ball down the field. But Stroud does exactly that, and they pick up a big completion right there. These are the kind of things that Stroud does really effectively, and we saw him do this in college, and we're seeing him do this at the NFL level now, is just the consistency of these types of plays. Part of why Bryce Young was the consensus quarterback number 1 in the draft class, a lot of people felt like he should be number 1. Everyone's going to make fun of the Panthers now, but it's also worth mentioning CJ Stroud wasn't even the consensus number 2 according to the consensus mock draft big board. Will Anderson was number 2. CJ Stroud was the number 3 pick. Texans had both number 2 and number 3 picks, so it didn't really matter. But a lot of why people were just concerned about how well was Stroud going to acclimate at the NFL level. Is it going to take him some time? No, apparently he's totally fine and making this stuff look easy, if anything. More simple stuff, too, he's doing really well, which, listen, at the NFL level, being a young quarterback, being able to pull off the simple stuff, that's not easy. This play, it's zone coverage. You see how this concept can work where you have multiple receivers. You have 3 receivers out wide to the offense's right. Multiple are going to run further deep. The third one kind of follows behind, just tries to get, underneath in the end zone, but barely in the end zone on this 3rd down and goal. That's what you hope happens. And watch, CJ Stroud takes a snap. He is going to look over there. There is a window for Stroud to make this throw, But again, you look at him, he's in the throwing motion. And one thing I also really like about Stroud is look at how quickly he gets rid of the football. Watch the release time as he gets it out of his hands in a hurry. And that's a really underrated aspect of quarterback play, in my opinion, is how long does it take you from making the decision, yeah, that's where I want to throw it, to having the ball out of your hands. Because we all talk about arm strength and stuff like that. But, I think about like Tom Brady and how quick his release was. That made him a better decision maker, right? Like if you're better at getting rid of the football quickly, you're going to be a better decision maker, because if you have a longer release, even if it's just a split second, that's sometimes all these defensive backs need. Defensive players are really good at the NFL level, so cutting down on that time that way and also just making accurate throws really helps out Stroud. Also heading over here, this seems like a simple thing as well, but ask Jalen Hurts, it's not always that simple. So Texans are up 7 points here, but there's 3 minutes left. Saints have 2 timeouts. At this point, if you can pick up a first down, you can just about ice the game, right? I know it's 3rd down and 12 and it's hard, but you can probably get onto outside of field goal range, give yourself a good chance to make a field goal and go up 2 scores, even if you don't kick a field goal. Like, let's say you get right at the 40-yard line, get the first down, and then, lose 3 yards and have to punt. You're still looking at a scenario where now the Saints only have 2 minutes, no timeouts. They would need to go 90 yards to get a touchdown. It'd be really hard if you can get the first down. So a lot of young players, this is kind of when you can make some mistakes, let's be honest. So right off the bat, Stroud, play doesn't work out exactly as designed, which is expected. 3rd down and 12. You almost have to add some extra time here if you're going to have a chance. But, again, in this scenario, if you're a Texans fan who's seen a lot of young quarterbacks come and go, maybe you're a little bit concerned, a little bit tensed up, like, oh no, don't make a mistake here. Make sure that you don't do anything stupid. And as you see, Stroud's going to throw the football away. He doesn't do anything stupid. Now, I think the one thing you could argue is, hey, is it maybe worth it in this scenario to take a sack, either burn 40 seconds off the clock or force the Saints to take a timeout? Because either way, if you're going to punt at this point, and you're at the 48, losing that 10 yards of field position isn't ideal. But at the end of the day, it's not maybe a disaster either. But I don't know. I'm not going to fault them too much for it. At the end of the day, you want to minimize the damage. And that's another aspect that Stroud has done a really good job of, is damage minimization. He doesn't make these big mistakes, which is usually what you see young quarterbacks make. That's usually the issue. A lot of times when young quarterbacks come in, even when they're playing well, it's like, they're playing really well. They're making dumb mistakes, but they're playing really well. They're showing a lot of positives. Stroud's playing really well, and he's not really making a ton of dumb mistakes. There are a couple, for sure, but not a ton. And that's just another thing that's really impressive about him. So yeah, yet another impressive game for the Texans, another win for the Houston Texans, who, hey, showing a lot of good stuff. Have a bye week, and then they play Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. That should be an interesting game. But yeah, those are my thoughts on CJ Stroud. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.